So now we've looked at how to install Wireshark on Windows. It was a fairly straightforward process. Now I want to show you how to install Wireshark on a Linux desktop. So in this case, I've got Ubuntu desktop pulled up on the screen. It's generally my Linux distribution of choice, either Ubuntu desktop or server. One of the more popular distributions. Certainly, you may prefer something like Red Hat or another distribution. And this, of course, may not apply to you if you're using one of those distributions. I'm only going to show Ubuntu, but really the concepts apply kind of universally. And there are really two ways to install software on a Linux system, whether it's a desktop or server operating system. One of those ways is to use the built-in package manager. So we're talking about apt for Unix and Debian-based operating systems, or for Red Hat-based operating systems, we're talking about things like Yum. So you're probably already familiar with your distribution and what package manager it uses, and most of them maintain a package for Wireshark that you can use to install it fairly simply. So I'm actually going to show that process here because it's really, really easy. It may actually be easier than installing on Windows. Now to do that, I'm going to open the menu here, and I'm going to select Terminal and open my terminal. Now to install this package, pretty straightforward. Sudo apt-get install Wireshark. So you do need administrative privileges to do that, so that's why I'm using sudo, and I'm just going to tell it I want to install Wireshark. It's going to ask me for my password. And sure enough, it looks like it found a package. There's some packages that are required for Wireshark to run, and it's going to install those too. But otherwise, I can just hit yes, and that's going to start downloading and installing. So pretty straightforward. Once it's done here, I'll show you that we can execute that either straight from the command line or from the same menu where we executed the terminal from. Now, again, this is going to vary. If you're using Red Hat, it's going to be you're going to be using Yum, so Yum install Wireshark, something like that. So this only works for Ubuntu. But I have installed that now. I can go ahead and search for Wireshark, and sure enough, it looks like I do have Wireshark available here. I'm going to run it, and sure enough, it works just fine. So very straightforward. Install it in just a matter of seconds. Quite honestly, it's faster than the Windows install. So nothing too tricky there at all. So with that said, that's the easy install. There may be some cases where you need to compile and install from source, and I'll show that process here next. So I've gone ahead and took what we just did and gotten rid of it. I've reverted the snapshot in the virtual machine I'm using back so that Wireshark is no longer installed on the system, and I'm going to show you how to do that by compiling it from source. Now, there are a few reasons why you might want to compile from source. It's particularly going to happen if you're on an operating system where there is no package that's maintained. There's not one that you can just install simply like I just did. Maybe you want to do some specific configuration, so when you build from source, you can enable and disable certain features that might not be configured or that you might not want from the standard package. And sometimes if the package you're trying to install just doesn't work, maybe you want to install something a little bit more bleeding edge or an older version, then you might want to compile from source in that way. So the good thing is compiling from source does let you customize it a little bit more to your needs if you need that. Now that said, most of you will not. I rarely need to compile Wireshark from source. I can't really think of the last time I needed to do it, other than maybe when I was trying a new bleeding edge kind of up-to-date distro that was ahead of the actual released packaged version. So with that said, I do want to show it here with the caveat that this is going to change really frequently. I wrote my notes on this a couple months ago, and since I did it, I had to adjust them a little bit. So as the operating system you're working with changes and updates versions, and as the software you're trying to install changes and updates versions, the procedure for installing and the required packages, they're going to change a little bit. So if you're watching this and it's a couple months after I've released it, then you may find that it's not exactly like this. You don't follow these exact steps, and unfortunately that's just kind of how compiling and installing software in that way in Linux and Unix works. Nonetheless, I'll point out a couple places where if there are errors, what to look for and how to resolve those. Usually has something to do with packages and dependencies, and those are things that can be resolved with a little bit of elbow grease. So with that said, you see the Wireshark page on the screen. Before we downloaded the stable release Windows installer, here we're actually going to download the stable release source code because that's what we're going to be compiling. And I'll go ahead and save that, and it's going to download pretty quickly. So while that's downloading, I'm going to go ahead and once again open up the terminal because we have a little bit of work we have to do before we can install Wireshark. So I'll go ahead and put that right there. And we'll see that if I go ahead into the downloads directory, it looks like my archive is here. But before I extract and install it, I need to install some prerequisites. There are a few packages that Wireshark is going to require to be able to compile and run. Of course, keep in mind that the packages I'm going to install, a lot of them are just required for compilation, so to compile Wireshark, but not necessarily for it to run after it's compiled. So some of these could potentially be removed, although not all of them. Now, to do that, I'm going to use apt-get install again, the same thing we used to actually install Wireshark, but I'm going to focus on the packages that need to be installed, and there are a few of those. Okay, so you see I have them all here. We have package config, bison flex, qt5, libgtk3, libpcap, and then the dev tools for qt tools 5. Again, some of these things are needed for Wireshark to actually function and use specific features, and some are needed just to compile. So I'm going to go ahead and get those installing. It's quite a bit of stuff. It's about 160 megabytes of data, so we will we'll go ahead and let that install. So now that all the prerequisite packages are there, and I can go ahead and take those and start beginning the process of configuring and installing Wireshark. Now to do that, the first thing I have to do is extract the package that contains Wireshark. So we have this tar.bz2 file, so I'm going to use tar-jxvf to extract that into a folder in the current directory. So it's going to extract that into the Wireshark 2.2.3 folder, which is the version of Wireshark we're actually installing now. Now those version numbers increment pretty quickly, so by the time you're seeing this, it's probably going to go up some. But don't worry about that. It may change your installation procedure a little bit, but hopefully not too much until I get to another major version release. So I'm going to go ahead and change into this Wireshark 2.2.3 directory, clear, and it looks like we've got a lot of stuff here. We've got a lot of .c and a lot of .h files. So this is uncompiled Wireshark. This is all the source for Wireshark that we are now going to compile. To do that, pretty straightforward. The first thing we're going to do is run the configure command. And this is going to take a little while to run. What this is doing is actually checking the configuration, looking for all the prerequisites, making sure everything that's needed to actually do the compilation is there. The thing about this part is this is where you're most likely to run into errors if you're going to have them. So if you forgot to install one of the prerequisites, maybe I missed installing something that was listed in that installation process I did earlier with sudo apt-get, then it would throw me an error here. Now the problem here is that a lot of those errors are often very cryptic, so they're not going to say, "Hey, you forgot to install, XYZ prerequisite." Instead, it's going to say, "error, can't find file, libpcap.h," right? And that would mean, I forgot to install libpcap/-dev. So they're not always the most helpful errors. Sometimes they can point you in the right direction in terms of a package name. But that said, just take the error, throw it into Google. Chances are someone has already had that error. Generally, anytime I run into one of those errors, somebody has run into the same issue. Oftentimes, specifically with Wireshark, because it's very widely used and a lot of people are doing this and they're testing it pretty thoroughly. Or even in the context of other applications. So you have another application you've installed that requires one of the same prerequisites and it goes missing. Somebody might report that, and you might find a thread in a forum somewhere, Stack Overflow, something like that, where someone has run into the same issue. So take the error, Google it. This is, again, where you're most likely to run into issues. Now, there's a little output that's sent here that shows basically the configuration results. So this is the Wireshark package has been configured with the following options. And you see all the different tools that come with Wireshark: dump cap, merge cap, T-Shark here, things like that. The big thing you want to look for just running Wireshark is this build Wireshark section. And if it says yes, then you're good to go. That means all the prerequisites were there and everything was fine. You have to be careful because if you miss one of the prerequisites, configure can actually complete just fine. But if build Wireshark is set to no, then you're not going to get Wireshark and you may just get T-Shark and you may be left a little bit confused. So take the time to quickly review this output here to make sure everything is working as it's expected. So I'm going to go ahead and clear that. And the next thing to do is to do the compilation to get it ready to install. So I'm going to do sudo make install here. And it's going to go ahead and start that process. Now, this process right here can be fairly time consuming, especially if you're on a resource limited system. Compiling software takes time, especially big complicated software like Wireshark with a lot of files. You're going to see it here go through all the different protocol dissectors, a lot of different things, and it's going to take a little bit of time. So I'm not going to go through that here. I'm on a VM with pretty limited system resources, so it's going to take several minutes. So we'll go ahead and fast forward to the completion of this step. So we fast forwarded quite a bit here to get through that make install process, but we're all done here. There are no errors we have to be concerned about. We're all ready to go to the next step. So I'm going to go ahead and clear my screen and do the final really installation command, which is just sudo make install. Re-enter my password here. And that'll run through, and this should be a fair bit quicker than the other process we just went through with the sudo make and the configuration. So this is finalizing everything up for the most part and getting us ready to run. And it looks like we're all done here. So we're just about ready. We just have one last command to run, and that's just sudo sbin ldconfig. Ldconfig is just a program that's used to maintain the shared library cache. It links together shared libraries with their files, and you don't need to know a lot about that. You can look up more about that if you want to, but just suffice to know that we have to run this to get everything going. And that should do it. So we should be set up to go. So at this point, you can run Wireshark, and I can just execute it here from the command line. But one thing I'll recommend, it doesn't always work quite right off the bat. So one thing I'd recommend is just going ahead and rebooting the machine, which will really make things to where they'll actually work a little bit more properly. I see some weird errors sometimes if I try to run Wireshark right after installation without a reboot. Something that can certainly be dug into more, but for our purposes, I'll just go ahead and reboot it, and that'll get us back up and going again. All right, so my system is rebooted, and now we can test to see if our installation worked. I'll go ahead and search for Wireshark here, and sure enough, it looks like we do have it. So I'll go ahead and run that, and it looks like we're good to go. We're ready to run Wireshark and start capturing packets. So that completes our tutorial of showing how to install Wireshark on Linux, both with the package manager here in Ubuntu, or via compiling via source. Again, I wouldn't really recommend compiling via source unless you have a really good reason to do so. Most cases, you'll be fine just installing the appropriate package. That said, this course we're going to use Wireshark for Windows. It's really the operating system that's going to be the most full-featured to run all the Wireshark features, and really most of the things we show on Windows can be applied in some way to the Linux versions as well.